Hey everybody, my name's Adam Lamb. This is Dr. Chris Zaino. This is our inaugural podcast, Two Men and a Talk. And the premise behind this is us, two guys with lots of life experience that are really focused on living the best life we possibly can. We're just gonna share things, whether it's challenges we've overcome, life hacks, whatever it might be that we think men should be talking about that will also be valuable for you as a man and a listener to apply into your life and just kind of be part of this conversation with a big picture goal is that you're having these conversations and facilitating this with your friends and your peer group to just so we can all become better men, husbands, fathers, all these kind of things, business leaders as well. What do you think, Chris?
No, I totally agree. It's the point where I love hanging out with high-minded and like-minded people, right? So Adam and I, we could get together, we could talk for hours, right? That's what we're kind of doing, right? And so a lot of times when you look at social media and you see people's personas, you may think, well, their life is different, or they have it, they're lucky, or they have it special, and it's not. Like, you never know what's going on. So this is something where it could be real men being real men. You know what I mean? Just like the ups, the downs, it's the hero's journey of all the things we've done in our life that many of you maybe relate to. And we're always transparent. We're gonna let you know our losses and our wins, but at the same time, you could sit there going, hey, oh, I get it. And if you could have any type of relation with that, or you could understand it or relate, and we could help together as a journey, ourselves and you guys, to just move through those pits, you know? Because a lot of times I'm like, man, Adam's doing great, he's peaking, and I'm in a pit, you know? And then Adam's job is to show me the gap, and then he becomes the guy, my leader, not my savior, my leader, say, hey, listen, man, try this out, or encourage me, and that's what we do together, because we're always at different places at different times.
Yeah, and the key thing is that, as men, we hide so much, right? And we want to tell stories, and we want to just get behind, talking about sports or weather or just politics, like stuff that just doesn't move us forward, as opposed to having a conversation saying like, man, I feel disconnected from my wife lately, right? And in a safe place with guys to not be judged, not be, we're not in a competition. And so, Chris and I have been fortunate to have a good friendship of transparency, openness of like, dude, like this is, I'm losing here. Like what, and someone that's there for you listening, maybe has an opportunity idea, whether it's business or relational, and just to support each other, because too often as men and guys in our 40s with families, like it can be it's like isolation to have raw, real connection. And so we want to help facilitate that. We spend a lot of time just talking, doing this stuff, and we decided, hey, why don't we do a podcast that actually does this, because we think we can help a lot of other guys do this in their groups and beyond and be part of this conversation.
And I'll just jump right into something, and it's just the other day, it's like, so I'm going through some stuff in my life, and because usually I'm impatient, right? So I'm rushing things, and usually impatience, it's lack of faith.
Yes.
It's fear and lack of faith, because if you believed, hey, as long as it takes, so impatience means I don't believe in myself, I have fear, and I'm trying to rush it because I don't know if it'll happen. So impatience makes me make some bad decisions out of scarcity and poverty, or things are not going the way I should be. Then my perception of life is this sucks, it's not going well, and I just create more of it by thinking that way. And then I come home, and then I realize, I told Adam, like Monique, my wife, she's not the one that I need to be talking to, even though she wants to hear. She's like, baby, I want to hear the ups and the downs, but like inside me as a man, I'm like, dude, you're being a weak fucking bitch. Like, don't tell your fucking wife this. Like, you need to shut the fuck up and deal with, figure it out on your own. Like, don't bring that to her, because I'm trying to give her a certain life she wants to have. Like, she shouldn't have to worry about this stuff. It sucks that she has to worry about it. And sometimes I feel, this is probably I told Adam the other day, this is probably a conversation I need to have with another man.
Yeah.
And then you hash it up, because sometimes we do feel alone. And then my best friend Monique, I share things with her, and there's so many times I share things with her going, why did you do that? Never again. Why? Because all I'm doing is now throwing off my anxiety, scarcity, fear onto her. And now we have a pity party together, right? So I'm like, man, what are you doing? That's a conversation you need to have with a man, not your partner, not your woman. So let's talk about that. A lot of guys, and you feel alone. It's like, because I have to vent. It's like, I don't have anyone to vent to. I feel bad calling my buddy because maybe they're busy. And then it's in that weak moment, I get to be weak, I tell my shit, and it shouldn't be going to the wife.
Yeah.
She's busy taking care of the kids and the family, doing these other things. She's cheering you on, and here I come home and I'm dumping shit on her. So, that's what I experienced the other week.
It's interesting, and it's a real thing, and I think either there has to be a place where, like, I want to share things with my wife more on the success side than the failure side. I also want to be honest with, like, certain things, but my job as a man is to support my wife.
Right.
And her job as my wife is to support me. But at the same time, there's certain things we navigate as men. Like you mentioned that you started right off with this fear or like uncertainty and its lack of faith. In the same conversation I was having with one of my clients just yesterday is like, when I'm impatient, it's because I'm trying to force something, and as opposed to the flow with faith, right? So when I believe, there's a flow, and if I'm patient, the things I can't control. And so there's also, just as guys, we can work with each other on those things, right? Where, like, my wife, one of the things with her, which is a problem. First thing I go, am I solving or listening, right? And so the same thing, sometimes we need to vent, but we also, there's maybe creating a space of like, hey, I just need to like let it rip for a minute about what happened at work today. Is that cool? Cool. Let it rip. They're not trying to solve. I'm not dumping it on you. I'm just telling you a little bit of a story because I need to hear myself speak it. But at the end of the day, you're right. As men, we need to have this relationship that we can have these conversations with. It's safe, right? You and I talk. I don't go home and tell my wife, right? And it's like, because you have to have that strength in the relationship and the trust, because we don't really have that often. And so I think it's super important to do that. And that's the part of like having guys, like, who can you trust in the circle? Do you even have a circle? Is your circle some shallow, you're playing fantasy football and like you have a couple beers after work together? Or do you have like men in your life that you can have, like, that you can be vulnerable and share with, right? Like, to me, like, those are the strongest men, is the men that will show you their weakness. The men that try to, like, you talk about social media, all buttoned up, leaning on my Lamborghini. I'm like, dude, I didn't want to talk to you because you're fake. Show me your flaws. Show me your struggles. And those are guys I want to connect with, men that are willing to show their struggles, because those are guys that I know I can be safe around. Because I believe the most transparent man in the room is the most powerful man in the room. The quiet guy in the room usually has the most to hide. Usually is not going to share their flaws. And I'm not interested in meeting that person. Right.
Yeah, so, and that was a big thing. So a lot of times as men, we just feel like, well, we try to figure it out on our own. I'm kind of a, figure it out, introspect, see what's going on. But there's times where you need help. And I don't mean like bitching and complaining, but there's just some things as men, like, we need help and we don't seek help. And then that kind of gets us into what I'll go into now as vices. So for me, I'll tell you last year. Last year, this is dead. This is me setting the bar at being totally honest. So last year I had a rough year. I went to Mexican prison. I have a whole YouTube things on that. But when I came back to cope with a failing business, I feel like I woke up in a bizarre world. I started, food became a vice, right? Because it gave me a little bit of a dopamine rush. And then tried different types of drugs like ketamine, it helped, like with anxiety, or Xanax with anxiety, but then I noticed as soon as it wears off, it's still right there, right? So it's not solving a problem. It's not like
it's sedation.
It's sedation. And sometimes and listen, I'm not against you doing something to let loose and have fun when you are at the point of your life where you can loose, let fun, and then be right back to business. But I was not letting loose to have fun. I was sedating the problem that was in front of me. So I only felt good when I slept. So I would go to bed with the fear, and I would wake up and it was right there. It was like my mom when she lost my brother and he died. And she's like, every waking minute when she was mourning, that pain was there. Yeah. And that's what I felt like. I never had a pain where that stress of, it only had, like when I went to sleep, when I woke up, it was there. So the worst thing is being high on drugs, and then the fear is still there. It's like, now I'm high. Now the pleasure that this vice was supposed to give me became even a greater pain, because now it's like, right? It's like, so then after a while, I'm like, okay, I can't do these vices anymore, because I was a very disciplined person where I could party, do this, and then not addicted. And I wasn't addicted to ball, but I was like, man, I was trying to escape as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I would justify it. See, we justify things. I would justify things like this. Well, I don't drink.
Yeah, at least I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't drink.
I don't cheat on my wife. It's like,
yeah,
but these other problems could lead down.
It's the same intention. It's the same spirit of you're escaping, you're running away, and then you have to still face it, and now you feel even shittier, right? Yeah. So that was something that, after you realize it, like we're doing during the weekdays, not just the weekends, and that little escape, like what am I running from? So when I'm eating bad, when I'm not exercising, when I'm feeling guilty, when I'm trying to go to vices, we got to ask ourselves, what are you running away from? Because the key to that, Adam, is with a group of men is, what is that thing, and go at that. What are you trying to run away from? I'm just, well, let's talk about what you're running away from, because that's when you bust through that, there is no vices that are needed.
No, you're 100% right. And I'm a spiritual guy, and I think, the devil's going to either come in and try to get you to believe you're not good enough, which could make you not pursue your purpose. Or number two, he's going to get you on a vice to make you ignore and forget your purpose to go down another path, yeah. Right? Those are the two things. Either you feel like you're not good enough, or I'm going to find something that's going to make me try to forget about my purpose or my calling. And I think that's a lot of men. And so, that's where the conversation comes into of like, what am I hiding from, right? And that's where it's like, I tell the guys, I'm like, tell the truth. What is the actual truth? A guy recently was talking about his issues with pornography and jerking off all the time, and I was like, and his focus was on stopping to do that. And I said, well, hold on. How often are you having sex with your wife? And he was like, well, that's kind of personal. I was like, you just told me you have a porn issue. I was like, I think we're in the same pool, right? And so, and he's like, well, I mean, and then we went down the path of like why they're not having sex, while there's disconnection, and going down the path of he's kind of a jerk to her, so she doesn't feel attracted. And like you just going down this path into where it's like the porn was just the masturbation, all that stuff was like, that was just a result of this problem. So we went down the path of like, okay, how can I be a better man? How can I be more confident? Well, you've also gained 40 pounds, and like, would you want to have sex with you? And so he saw himself different. Like, would you say you're loving and honoring your wife? Like, is she like looking at you and thinking, "Woo, I want to jump this dude's bones"? And so that we realized that was actually the problem. Just like you mentioned, like the drug is the result of the problem not being addressed, right? And so, and I've dealt with that. I mean, like I had to quit drinking alcohol 7 years ago because like alcohol was my way to just escape stress, escape anxiety. And I had an alcohol issue since 14 when I first started drinking. I mean, I was like, I don't like the term, but like alcoholic, I mean, blackout drunk in high school, dude. Yeah. So you imagine 25 years of just drinking to escape. And I snapped out of it one day because I was like, where I want to go in life as a husband and financially and as a father, like I lost my dad who's an alcoholic and wasn't around. And so like I had that pain, yet I chose to live in that pain because the pain of certainty was better than the pain of uncertainty. What if I took alcohol? Right. What if I didn't have that problem, right? And so, helping each other wake up to that, because I had a friend, like a kind of a mentor who, he's like, yeah, I quit drinking in my early 30s because I knew where I wanted to go. Alcohol wasn't going to fit. And so I was like, well, that's a cool way of looking at it. I don't have to say I have a problem or I'm an alcoholic or I'm sober. I go to AA. I can just decide it doesn't fit. And I made that decision, wrote a book. I mean, it changed my life, and I've helped hundreds of other guys change their relationship with alcohol because of that too. But it requires a conversation about what's the actual problem.
So for you, because that's the thing, like, I don't know if it's because we enjoy being victims and complaining, but it's like, I know that the solution is just to the other end of conquering that thing. It's like, because you know how people say, well, deep down, you clearly don't want to be different or change that way. It's like weird coaching sometimes. You're like, well, you just don't want it bad enough. It's like, or you manifested that. And I'm like, we'll go in the woo-woo world. You manifested that. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I subconsciously manifested to put myself in such a shithole or a shit position. And it's all perception. So I don't know if it's part of your spiritual journey where, boom, it's the test. Because usually when that happens, resolution comes out of it, right? Versus when things are easy and smooth. But I don't know why. Maybe that's like a God question. Like I don't know why. Like people say, well, your thoughts determine your results, and it's like, but sometimes like there's no way I would have thought this disaster in my life. And you start to be like, maybe I'm different. Maybe my situation's different, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it just seems like things are going against me and they shouldn't, and I'm working my ass off and things aren't moving. So that's where that frustration and impatience come from. So for you with the drinking, what do you feel was the thing that, it's so weird. It's like, what was the thing that you're avoiding with drinking, but that thing was probably much easier to conquer?
Well, what it was a belief system of how worthy I was, right? Barely graduated high school, like no college, no healthcare training, like a wife that I like way out of my league, right? Like life, like there was a part of life that I grew up in an atmosphere of like lack, uncertainty, like everything's gonna fall apart. And so when you grow up in that, you're waiting for it to fall apart. Like your expectation, even though you could say like, well, I'm not manifesting that my life falls apart, but what is that little voice? What is that little fear? It's like, when's it all gonna fall apart? When's she gonna leave me? When's this business gonna get shut down? And so I'm waiting for the bad instead, playing like this defensive anxiety place, instead of focusing on like laser focused on the future, what I would actually want. And the alcohol helped sedate that, so I could like, you get a couple drinks in and you're like, I don't really care. So your problems seem to go away. And then what I realized is removing alcohol, you have to face those demons, and through self-development, we both are into that stuff, reading, I read 500 something books, but in a lot of these books I started reading is what led me to the idea that I need to remove this elephant in the room, which is alcohol. And then through the almost like that coaching through the books of like going to this higher level, and then I started seeing the clarity and my confidence, because I realized I was like, man, the amount of shame and guilt I had attached to alcohol, I didn't realize because I was so used to it. And when I removed it, I was like, dude, I'm awesome. And then going like 30 days, 60 days, and being at these parties and like kind of, went to Vegas, did something with the Detroit Lions, and all this cocktail hour, and I was like, I'm good. And I was like, man, everyone in that room is weaker than me because they can't say no to alcohol. They may not drink, but they're still feeling obligated. And then being at like a Thanksgiving party and seeing everyone's like, can I get you a drink? And I was like, I don't need a drink. Like, I don't need to have a cocktail in my hand to feel comfortable, and realizing like everyone else is so uncomfortable. And it became like this superpower, right? And so I transitioned it from like this alpha thing, instead of this like, oh, alcohol week, I'm sober, it's righty, and I'm not knocking it, it's good for some. I was like, I'm a badass. I don't need what 99% of you guys need. And then that confidence that came into me, I hadn't had my whole life, right? I'd always been told, you can't. And I was like, I am. I'm doing it. Like I set out to do this thing. And then everything else, just the filter changed, my perspective changed, what my ability to see what I could do. And then I looked at my marriage, and I was like, instead of worrying about my wife leaving me for a better guy, why don't I just become the guy I'm scared could my wife, or the guy that I think my wife actually deserves. Right. Did a total pivot, right? It became the man that she deserves to marry. And then you feel more confident, because you're like, leave if you want. I feel pretty good at who I am, but now I'm delivering. I'm fulfilling this purpose that I've been hiding from with alcohol, or just other things, right? Like waiting for a marriage to fall apart. Well, you're not into it, right? Yeah,
that was great, because you're like, sometimes when you're thinking negative, you're expecting, or even like scared of, which is expecting, versus it takes the same amount of energy to expect the good. Like the what if game. My mom, she's funny, she's old-fashioned Christian, but old-fashioned like. I remember we had like an au pair, right? So when he got the au pair, and she goes right to the boys know that there's no touching the private parts, right? I'm like, you went straight to pedophile. I mean,
but that's my mom. When I was a kid, a single mom, like I thought someone's gonna try to molest me every time I went to the bathroom as a kid.
Right. I'm like, Mom, how about what if he's like a great big older brother? If we're gonna play the what if game, the what if game is it's spiritual anyway.
That's right.
So it's like, well, why do we what if the shit versus like, well, what if there's gold at the end of the rainbow? I mean, because we're just fairy tale land now. Like, what if? And it's so funny to see like she grew up in that Depression era and very protective era. It's like she goes right to the DEFCON level 10 security.
My mom's the same kind of worry. Like, she'll worry about problems that she couldn't even actually have in reality. Well, Adam, if you buy that, what's the insurance going to be? I'm like, wow, who do you mean?
We don't ask that question when you buy that car.
What's the gas? How much gas you spend on that Escalade? I don't know. I don't even care. I don't even know how much it costs to fill the thing up. It's a different focus on what we're building. But you're right with that, and it's interesting. But if that's what I'm focused on is, when's my marriage going to fall apart? How many people go to work every day wondering if they're going to get laid off, wondering if they're going to, like, their bosses, and their whole goal is to just navigate in fear.
So we're talking about, so I'll just go into this. So, like, you're super right. Like, so the last year, like, I tend to see, if I had to say, like, are you more negative or positive? My thoughts did go towards avoiding the negative. Like, not thinking that, we don't think they're negative, but if I'm avoiding the negative, that means I'm expecting something negative. And then what I found, and I want you to talk on this with finances, because I made some stupid ass financial shit. Because I was talking to Adam, I'll tell you what happened. So, I just wanted to get to 50 grand a month, passive. And so I was climbing up. I could throw my money, and this gave me the options, 50 grand a month. I'm set, dude. I was single, this and that, awesome. Like, just thinking about that right now, Adam, like, that's my point of, like, ease, right? And then, so I met a guy, we know the same guy, and he had a $40,000 a month penthouse in Miami. I'm like, well, clearly he may have some awareness that I don't know, because that's the only reason. The reason why we're not making $1 million a month is because we just lack awareness. Same.
It's all there. Everything's out there.
Nothing's new. It's there, right? So I'm like, well, he may know something, because I read my lack of awareness is the reason why I'm not where I want to be. So I sought out people that had places or things. I'm like, wow, crazy. No, it's like, yeah, I have this fund, and they got me into these 2 funds, and I got greedy, so I put over like 1.3 million in that, and it became a Ponzi scam. Fuck. It just like, and so Mexico happened, I came home, and I went one day to look at the account, and it was gone. I was just like it was a joke thing. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, everything I put security in was taken away. It was the perception of it. So then I found, not only was I living life expecting to avoid fear, because, to sum it up, I think I was living life, I wasn't playing to win anymore. I was playing not to lose.
Yes.
And there's a different thing there. So, like, when Adam had made me realize, because I was trying to find my lesson. Why? Because you look back, you want to learn a lesson. So for $1.3 million, what's the lesson? Like, please, let's learn.
It's an expensive lesson.
So, and Adam's like, dude, sounds like you were trying to escape. And I'm like,
that retreat, yeah.
Why? I'm like, he's like, like you were trying to escape. I didn't want to be around people. I wanted a no rules home, and wanted just to speak to people like Adam and my friends, and film videos, and just be like in a compound. He's like, that's retreating, that's escaping. And I'm like, oh my God, I was retreating. He's like, well, maybe God still wants you to fight and do something. I'm like, oh my God, because it's been about 9 years, because I've been editing these old We Are Heroes shows, and it's been about 9 years where I had this like fire and drive, and like I woke up looking to conquer a purpose that benefited others. See, so my purpose the last couple of years was benefiting me. How can I get this to retreat from them? Fuck everybody. Like,
it's like traditional burnout almost.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, just no, versus like, I remember the day where I didn't care. I didn't even know what I made. It was just like I went to work to serve people. Like, if I helped you, because I realized, shit, I don't, like, if I just serve that person, everything else will take care of. Lamborghini in the garage, G-Ride. I mean, I paid for my home, the builder, just cash, chunks. Like, when it was like, oh, you need another draw? Here you go. Because I just focused on serving. I didn't even know if you told me, what did you make that month? Didn't matter. I was like, all I know is like 100 people signed up, so we're set, And my whole life changed to like the getting and the greed or the quick things, trying to escape because I was impatient. And then I found myself the whole last year, okay, I'm playing not to lose. It's horrible, dude. So Garrett Gunnarsson, a friend of mine, he says, you can never shrink yourself to greatness. And I just felt I would shrink, I would fire staff, I would cut overhead, I wouldn't buy, like, I canceled my subscriptions, I went to the gas station that had the best gas, like I'm shrinking, and as I shrunk, my income shrunk. Like I think like if I save here and there, I'll have more profit. No, as I shrunk, everything shrunk. Office went down, this went down, my circle of friends went down.
It's a defensive move.
Right.
When you're 0 and the other team has a point on the board, and I've done the same thing with my son in soccer, where it's like the team scored 2 goals real quick, so it's 2-0, and you guys are worried about them scoring the 3rd goal. Well, if they never score a goal again, you still lose.
Right.
You got to go in the offense and go kicking goals like crazy at the thing, and that's, you know, but the mindset's like, oh my God, we got to protect the goal because I screwed it up twice, right?
Yes.
It could be 2 investments. It could be letting the business dip. So I got to protect everything. No, you got to go like a psychopath and go kill and win and flip the offense, right? And I've had that same thing in my business with my telehealth company where I'm doing an exit. Gotta get out of this. Didn't work, and I was like, it fell through. I had to go build the thing back up over a year. But what I learned about myself in building it and all that kind of stuff was a powerful thing that I was like, I will never ever go off offense again. I will never retreat, like, you know, because there's that part of like, man, I get a little cabin somewhere and just hang out all day, go on nature walks with my wife. God's like, oh no, you don't. I let you be an idiot for 38 years. I need you producing for me, right? And so I was like, all right, well, that's it, you know. And it can be a tough transition in and out of that.
And here for me, and maybe you could speak into this. The reason why I played not to lose is because I lost, and still to a point, confidence in my ability to make the right decision. Because I fucked up. I fucked up with women. I fucked up doing stupid things. A lot of life things, even with the kids, justice, and and I'm like, I can't trust myself. And so that's why I got back into my routine, the little ones. Like, well, I could control what I eat. I control not to take a drug. I could go on a cardio. Like, little wins to be like, I showed up for me. Because I was a guy who was just not going to stick to things, right? Or I can't trust my decision because everything looked great. Wow. And so I was like, I'm afraid to invest in here and there because it's like, I don't know if I could trust my decision. Look what happened. So how do you speak to someone who, like, they lost a little bit of confidence in their ability to trust themselves or to make a decision that may not be another ass kicking?
No, that's good. And I think you're right on track with how do I get my confidence back? And I have to go back at my mistakes. And I don't like to live in the past, but to your point, like, you make a $1.3 million mistake, you better learn that lesson and all of that lesson, right? And so it's like, you know, you wouldn't jump out of a 2nd-story window to run to the grocery store, but if your house was on fire and it was out the window or burned to death, you jump out the window, right? And so what can happen sometimes too, I think, is that when we suffer this house fire mentality that we start jumping out of the window, which are these bad decisions. We don't trust ourselves. Well, why did I make that decision? Well, because all this was happening. Well, what based on what was happening, how to make you feel? I was scared. I was playing to not lose anywhere. And it's like, okay, well, when I make decisions from that place, I make bad ones. When I make decisions from this place of clarity, confidence, like strategy, not fear, scarcity, lack, I make good decisions, right? And then it's how do I re-audit those? And a lot of times, like the same with alcohol, drugs, or any sort of, you know, chasing women, like any sort of sedation will hinder your ability to decipher those, because you start making decisions on feelings, or you make decisions on guilt or fear, and like, no, we need to make decisions on logic and what we're focused on, what we want long term, not short term, because there's that short term decision making to it. Well, I want junk food. Well, but I also want to have abs and be fit and lose weight. So it's like, well, when I can get more focused in the long term, keep saying no, right? Or get up early, do the cardio, whatever it is. Now I'm stacking that evidence back to myself that, hey, I can go make the bigger decision. I could think through this investment differently because I could look through it, look into it as an opportunity, not an escape, right? And so I think there's just that work, and it starts with, what do I do daily? My daily battle. How do I win the daily battle? How do I measure it? You know, the weekly war, like, oh, cool, I did it for 7 days. the monthly mission and looking like, here's what are the things I have to accomplish, and just start measuring stuff and holding myself accountable. And I think, you're right on track. What needs to happen is what can I control?
So what is so I'm hearing like it would be great if each of us had a litmus test to determine, is this part of my sole purpose, or or is this no? Yeah, like where we say no to good things. Mm-hmm. You're like, no, it sounds good, but here's the things I measure up. Here's my litmus test of making right decisions, and no, this is like, whether it be like I can't control that, or you know what I mean, or it's an area that I have no education on. It's just so. Do you have a litmus test when you? Because I know a lot of good opportunities come to you, and you do, especially now when it comes to businesses, and they're in all different arenas. How do you know? How do you taste it? I know some is intuition. How do you taste it to where you're like, all right, this is worthy of my time? Because that's the thing. When we have a goal, we have to realize we're trading our life for that goal. Yeah, so it's got to be. Right. So we a lot of times are like, am I worthy of that goal? No. Is that goal worthy of you? So any goal or endeavor we're trading our life for that, or time for that. So in your experience, what has been some things that you go through, even on a subconscious level, where it's like, this is my litmus test to allow me to say, because I know what you're all or nothing, right? So it's like, I'm either gonna go in or I'm out. So what has been your litmus test on that?
Well, it's a lot of reps, of doing, of being able to process something very quickly. I haven't had a huge opportunity. I was pitching yesterday with a massive company, but it was like a huge company. This is just a quick example. Huge company, major move. In my head, I'm like, if these guys were willing to make this identity shift and pivot as an organization, they could crush it. And I straight up threw like, this is a block to the chairman of this $100-something million company. This is your blockbuster Netflix decision. And I think it pissed them off, but I'm gonna let them sit with it. Right. And the only reason, because I need to know in 15 minutes if you're willing to do this. Because I'm not going to waste my time, right, with him hawing and sort of do the thing. We got to all do the thing. So, I mean, that's just a quick example of I will go right to the throat punch at this point in my life of doing it. But taking some steps back is the first and most important thing is, what am I focused on? So, if I don't have a goal, if I don't have a target, right, it's like my goal is, I want to be a multi-hundred millionaire by 50, which I got 6 years to do it. I want to be a billionaire by 60.
Yeah, because I saw a video of you seeing a billionaire, so I was going to let you back on, because that's a big difference. I
want to get So part of it was talking to our friend Bill. We both have a friend, him and I sat down. We're talking about these things, right? Thinking, what are we thinking about? I want a nice, I'd like a mountain home up in northern Idaho. I'd also like a plane. I want to fly. I want my own plane that gets up there. Well, what kind of plane? And thinking through this stuff. And to some people, that's like, hey, that's crazy. Look at I grew up super poor. I grew up not knowing how we're gonna get groceries on the table. But what I realize is when I start focusing on these bigger, crazy things, if I never get the plane, well, I'll learn a lot about planes. But what I've found is when I focus on a lot of this stuff, it actually comes true. When I launched my telemedicine company, I was listening to Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, that book, and I was like, man, I want to build something to this standard. Well, fast forward, what happened in 2021? Business Partners with Tony Robbins. That is all. I mean, not saying it manifested or whatever, but there was a part of me that believed that could actually come true.
Do you feel because you had your mind focused on that for a long time? So if I focused on something for a long time,
I never dismissed that being an actual option. And so it's will I become a billionaire? I don't know, but why not? Right, so I love. Why couldn't I?
Why not go for it?
I'm just going to go be obedient and do the work every day that I have to. So scaling that back is so I have to look at certain things too. But it's not just about money. My platform is the 1%, right? So it's I want to live in the top 1% all areas of my life. And so right now, I have these ups and downs in business where it's I kind of build something, exit or land a deal, or like you said, grow this thing to 50 grand a month reoccurring, and it's cool, I can, what's my next, I was using this analogy yesterday of I'm coming in as a farmer and I'm creating a crop, getting a harvest, creating a crop, and then I'm gonna hire a couple ranch hands or whatever to run that farm, and then I'm gonna start another farm, and then I can sell the land if I want later. But I've learned the skill set of growing corn and growing soy and growing all these other things, right? So that's what I'm doing now. So if there's an opportunity for me, just it meets my business criteria, and I focus on it. And so, but I'm laser focused on like, okay, this year, I have an income goal. And so based on where I'm at today, where I want to go, I look at things like that. So if it's like, hey, here's a business opportunity, I'll get you $5,000 a month, not interested. If it's not 50, if I can't get to 50 grand a month in this in 6 months, I'm not interested in it. If it's not an exitable thing. So if it's like, hey, Adam, you could be an affiliate thing for my company. I'm like, well, when your company sells, do I get a few $1 million? Yeah. No, well, okay, well, that may not interest me either. And so I'm looking at these things. So I have long-term equity plays with big companies, and then I'm looking at short-term, like cash flow, solve, scale, sell. And that's how I look at every business. Is there a problem to be solved? Can I scale that problem? And then can I sell it? Right? And so that's on the business world, but even like with my body, like I make decisions based on, I don't drink, I eliminate things that I want. Same thing, relationship. Like, hey Adam, let's go, buddy said, hey, let's go, boys trip to Miami. We're renting a yacht. No, it's going to be cocaine and hookers. No, it won't. Bro, it's always cocaine. Like, it doesn't align with my goals and values. I'd rather stay home and connect with my wife, and do those things. And so like, I just run it through this filter of like, this is where I'm going. You have to have fun. Like last Friday, I went to Alabama and raced Porsches.
Yeah, the Porsches.
But like, it was the funnest day of my life.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Right? Like, I did that, and it lit a fire inside me of like, dude, what do I got to do to race cars a couple times a month, and like what kind of car? And like, it became more of a reality. Something that I really loved and enjoyed became more of a reality for me, and that motivates me to go do more and go do the things, right? And so those things that you have to give space for, because it calls you and drives you forward. But I just have it's like biblical. Like, there's a narrow road. I have a narrow road that I'm trying to go down, which is I want to live in abundance and in prosperity. I want to have as much money as I can have. I want to give and help lead people, pour into people, have a marriage that's on fire. Like, I want to be that weird 70-year-old couple that's like talking about how we have sex all the time and smacking around our butt. Like, I want all that. So if it doesn't align with that vision, I'm out. It doesn't even interest me. It's just, that's how it is.
Because that sometimes is the issue, is that, well, I mean, I keep on going back. I think social media really like changes the way our kids think. I think with Justice that, maybe not me being around for an example and just watching YouTube. I think YouTube and UFC, like, they raised him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As far as the way he thinks. Because I'd be like, dude, why are you acting? So underneath that, this stuff's doing. So when I look online, but I'm looking online at good things. Like, I only follow, when I mute people, like I only follow like those, and so you see them just going at such a high level every day. It makes you feel like, well, I suck. Mm-hmm. Or it's like knowing when to embrace the suck. Yeah, like, I know this sucks, but you have to love it a little bit to have the drive and the motivation to do it 20 years. So I was talking to Garrett Gunnarsson over the weekend. It's like, what are you up to now? It's like, because he loves to write books. His thing is he likes to write.
Yeah.
So it's like, I write a book, but then I go to a broker, and he has to go to a publisher. And this goes going back to where you have to learn the skills. So at his level, you think it's like, so I was spending the last 3 months learning how to become a publisher. Like, I'm going to make my own publishing company, so I could go, I don't need a broker, and I don't need a publisher, I am my own publisher. Guy figured out how to become his own publisher. It's just like, so, but you could see he was the type that like dove in, how many hours a day, learning, like, and when I look at him, like to me, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, like, if you told me to do something like sometimes I look at like how to do marketing ads online, and I fall asleep because it's like something I'm not excited doing. But there's that thing inside you that when you have that strong purpose, it's like, if I could just learn how to market and do this and do that, like, then you'll be on there 8 to 10 hours a day learning how to do it. So he learned the skill. He's like, great, now I'm a publisher. So I don't have to go through any, like, because his goal is, I want to race more cars. I want to make more books. And his big thing is intellectual property. It's like, from tax purposes, especially now, I want to talk to you about this. He goes, like, your intellectual property, you could like make a company with Shell and like literally write the value. Oh, well, it depreciates the most. And so everything he writes, because then he sold his blogs and everything to other financial advisors so they could use his material and likeness.
Yeah.
So he's on to create intellectual property. So every time you write or every time you post, that's 1% intellectual property, and that's all. No one knows. You could write it off, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? So just, and how's he know this? Because he's constantly like, how can I keep as much money? How can I could be my own publisher, and then you go out and actually either get relationship capital, but I think sometimes we think relationship capital is, I'm just going to pay someone to do it. But let's go back to like even Garrett White. He marketed his own stuff first. He knew how to do it, then he told someone. Some of the best doctors I know have great marketing systems. They did it all themselves. They learned how to do it. Then they hired someone and say, "This, I want you to do the way I do it."
Yeah.
Versus, give me a digital media company, I pay them, and they just, they don't even know what they're doing.
I sure that the hormone space,
Yeah, right.
They didn't get it.
It's not their voice.
It wasn't in them. It was always so frustrating to have someone do that. You have to learn it. And I think, in what you're getting into, I'll never forget someone, this mentor of mine one time says, I've never met anyone who's searching as much as you. And at first, I almost looked at it as offensive. And then I realized that it's a gift, right? Like, I can't just sit down and watch 90 Day Fiance. Like, my brain needs to be like taking something in at all times, right?
Like Monique will tell me, I'll get off the couch. What are you doing? I've been, this thing's getting me anxious. Like, because I gotta like.
Yeah, my wife's saying, she's like, this helps me unplug. I'm like, I feel like my brain is bleeding inside of my skull.
I'm depressed.
Yeah. And so, or it makes me negative where I'm like, look at this loser. Like I start getting judgy. But the point being is that I want to research those things. And I think I suggest that for people of like even your setup here with the cameras and the lights, like it's awesome. And I'm into it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like to think of going through that process of what lights, what camera, and how to do it. It's one of those things where in my head, I'm like, I'm going to pay someone. But part of it, to your question earlier, is like, I can process certain things based on my interest of knowing if I'm going to be able to take it to the finish line or not, based on how interested I am in a really short amount of time. Same with a business. I can look at it and I'm just like, that doesn't really excite me, because it could be about the money, but it could also just be about like the passion or the person, right? I can meet somebody. I met some guy yesterday. I'm like, man, this dude is awesome. Like, I want to work with him. I'm going to figure out a way. And then it's like, because he's a great operator, he's a great visionary, he's very aligned. And so it's like, there's just things that I value, and when I see that value, I don't try to falsely create it. It took me a long time to get there, right? But it's from that constant searching, seeking, reading, learning. Like, if you're not doing that it's like working out, right? If you're always exercising and breaking the body down, you're more resilient, right? You're more aware of, that kind of feels off. But if you're never doing that and your brain is just on like stupid YouTube or stupid TV or stupid conversations, your brain's ability to process thought and idea and creativity just dies. And you can't, and then when something comes up, you're like, I don't know what to do, because your brain hasn't solved the problem in 5 years, right? Other than like the road's closed and you got to take a different route, and that's like, holy cow,
So I'm kind of getting this. It kind of struck me a little bit. So I think a lot of your experiences that you had personally, we hear the term self-mastery. And I think that's what life and the bullshit and the trials are, because what you're telling me is like, over time I learned I'm interested. Like, that's getting to know yourself. That's like building a relationship. Like, well, I know I'm interested. Just like saying, Monique, what are you interested? Like a lot of times we didn't even court ourselves, like, to actually know this is what I like.
And did we answer honestly?
No, because the next thing I was going to go was like, I want you to share in, like, as a coach, your number one thing is to get people to be really honest with themselves. It really is, because transformation can't come without me being 100% honest.
Recently, someone asked me, like, so what are your hobbies? And I felt obligated to find a hobby. I'm like, I don't have it. I like to work.
I love work.
I like to work, and I can hang out with my family. And when I'm not, like, I'll lay on the couch and watch a TV or like a documentary for like 3 hours just to like relax. Like, I don't have any hobby. It's too hot out to do stuff like racing the cars. So I was like,
that was adrenaline, right?
I was like, this could, like, it was the most fun day I've ever had in my life. And so I was like, I might have just found an expensive hobby, but something to do. But I share it because there's a part of me that wanted to give an answer based on what I felt they were expecting. And then the self-mastery version of me goes, I don't care what that person thinks of me. I'm going to tell the truth. I don't have any hobbies. Oh, well, what do you and he's like, what do you and your family do together? And same flow. I was like, we like make fun of each other at dinner. Like this, we just go out to dinner and like give each other a hard time. Like that's what we do, and we have a blast doing it. And because I realized I don't feel the need to create a story to fulfill what they're probably wanting to hear. Oh, like we do putt every. No, we don't, dude. Like we won't even finish the game because we'll argue again. We're like, but we have a blast together. We love each other. It's awesome. And so that goes into that transparency piece, right? So I'm honest with myself. And I'm like, for the first time in my life, I fully love the authentic version of me that is, and I cannot compromise that anymore. Because when I compromise who I am, and I'm compromising my identity, that's good. I can go to that.
Huh?
Yeah. And so when I compromise who I am, and I compromise my identity, it compromises my confidence, it compromises my self-belief, my self-worth, and then all of a sudden I'm watching 90 Day Fiance, getting drunk every night, eating
being
pizza.
Somebody else.
As opposed to when I'm like, this is who I am. I don't care what you think. I don't care what they think. I'm going in this direction. And you do that over and over. And what you find, A, you feel really good about yourself. And B, people are like, dude, you're different. Like, I want a little more. What are you drinking? Like, what are you into? Right. And so that confidence and just realizing like that is actually the ways. Find what is the most important thing to me. What's the thing I'm most focused on that I care about? And I'm just going at that 100 miles an hour and I don't care what anyone thinks. And that has been the biggest breakthrough gift for me is like, I serve God. His word says how I'm supposed to live. And I want my wife to think I'm a good, honorable husband. I want my kids to think I'm a good, honorable dad. But that's it, right? If you don't like me, okay. Like, you like me because I'm who I am. Great. So I love each other. But if you don't, I think you're a little too loud. Or great, you're not for me, dude. I don't care. It's like, why I wouldn't drive a green Ford Fiesta? Not for me, right? I'm not trying, I don't care, right? And so you just, once you narrow that down, to me, that's what it was, just narrowing down, here's what I like, here's what's important to me, here's what I'll tolerate, and then zero tolerance. And it's one of the things when you and I first worked together years ago, I remember you saying to me, and it was, again, I was like, is that a compliment or is that, but you're like, you're intolerant, meaning like, I have a thing and I've become more intolerant, right? Now, people can look at that wrong way. I love people, I want to lead people, I'm happy to help people, but I'm intolerant when it comes to me, where I'm willing to waver from my standards.
Boundaries, expectations, standards.
That's it. Now, am I open to grow? Of course. But am I open to go off course? Not a chance, right? I'm not exiting, like, hey, exit, you see the little exit sign that's like, debauchery and slow you down and high risk of things that aren't going to lead you to your goal. I'm not getting off that exit. I'm going straight, right? And so it's just something to think about, I think, is as we live our life, what do we let distract us? Like you said, as a coach, number one thing, I want to get honest. I want people to get as honest as possible. And then number two, what are our distractions and how do we avoid those distractions? Because that's where we go into vices and excuses and avoiding what we should be doing. Yeah. So, hey, Chris, this is the end of this episode of Two Men and a Talk.
Yeah.
And how we want to close every episode is a takeaway. And our goal with that is like, hey, Chris, what'd you take away? I'm going to share what I took away. And I'd also like you to ask yourself, what did you take away? And is it something we can go and implement in our lives, right? So, I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Do you think, is there a takeaway that you have from this conversation today?
Well, one of them was when I'm in fear and scarcity and impatience, I'm looking at life through a lens of I'm expecting negative to happen, even though I'm tiptoeing to avoid the negative, but the whole time I'm worshiping the negative, right? I'm not going for it. So what I say, I'm playing not to lose. Versus, well, no, in those times, you got to actually bet on yourself, even though you don't feel like it, to actually start making things happen. Changes, what do I got to drop? What do I got to start implementing? Or getting truthful with yourself. Say, hey, listen, I was trying to escape. Okay, why? because I don't like my job. Okay, what are you going to do about it? So are you going to move on? Because I think even for me, I was just so bored in that practice. It's like, man, I want to do something. So I went out and I got sucked back in. I tried something else, got sucked back in. So it's like,
it was that pit to peak of like, we go into the pit and then most people climb back out of the pit instead of coming through the other side.
That's what I did.
Ooh, it's hot, scary, heart, back out. And then you're like, you still see that peak and it hurts you because every time you go into the pit and climb back out, the peak seems further, harder, bigger. But when we go into it, and that's where I think, like, as guys, as this group is like, if you go into the pit and you're like, dude, I'm in the pit. And it's like, well, I've been in that pit. Let's walk through it together. Yeah. Don't go back out. Don't retreat. Let's go in together. So and as men, we need to do that.
So I didn't fail because I think, well, I just keep on failing. So I build this habit of failing. But no, I'm like, I go, dude, you just didn't stay in it long enough. Like you hopped out. It was like me jumping in your cold plunge. I'm out. It's like, dude, go to 3 minutes.
But you can just look at you and say, you're a man that stays in it long enough, right? You don't get to have the muscle, the strength of it. Like, you've had to make it. So it's like, that's, you get back to that identity, right? Like,
you know what it is, Adam? But that's so funny you mentioned that. Why do we make compartments for our lives? Be like, well, clearly we're working out and stuff. I could stick in there. So why would I do that in business? Okay. What's different? I'm not the same human in there. So why do I say no? I'm better in this area, or to do it's the same discipline. It's the same thought process. In fact, with working out and eating, you do all these things. You don't feel any better. Like in the beginning, I drink water, water or vodka. They both look the same. I drink one, I feel amazing. I drink one, I don't feel nothing. Right? So it's like working out. It's such a long process for results.
But you find joy in it.
Right.
How do I transition that
100%.
Same joy?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget an old boss of mine he was like, dude, if you pursued money like you pursued women, like when I was young in my early 20s, worked in nightclubs, like I was good at like meeting women. And it wasn't because I was like the best looking. I would, hey, what are you doing? You want to hang out? No. Okay. How about will you tap your blonde friend on the shoulder for me? Like I wasn't afraid of no's, and I would learn to kind of talk and have a little bit of swagger in that. But this guy said to me, he's like, "What's your biggest goal?" And I was like, "Make money." He was like, "Okay, because why don't you take the same effort that you would put into pursuing women into pursuing money?" And I was like, "Oh," but it was like because picking up women was what I was good at. Making money is not what I was good at. Until I made the shift, right? And so I took that same focus into that same thing with building a business, right? I was like, I don't know how to build a business. Well, you know how to build a body. You know how to be disciplined. You know how to plan out the next 16 weeks and like how much food, when I'm going to eat, what am I going to eat, when am I going to drink. I'm like, I know all that. And that's super hard. Look at the obesity, right? So it's like, how do I pick that up, place that into the business? And then when I did that, I was like, oh, like it just
like I would
sense.
Never in 1 month be disappointed at my gains if I didn't gain anything. I'm like, it's only a month. Mm-hmm. But a month in business, like, Jesus Christ, dude, we're failing.
Right?
Right.
And that's the hardest part of just step back for me. And that's the faith piece of like, I'm just going to be obedient every day. I'm going to focus on the things I can control and stay accountable and stay honest with that. And the things I can't, I'm not going to worry about, right? But I'm going to be aware, because if a trend is changing or something's changing and I'm like, nope, we talked about the Blockbuster thing. It's like, Blockbuster's like, no one's ever going to go do that. Oh, they did. You're out of business. Like not be that ignorant, but also not be so fearful you run around with a chicken with their head cut off.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that's good. I think my biggest takeaway is like when I heard myself say, like reflecting on that friend of mine about 10 years ago, he was like, I've never met someone who's like that is searching as much as you are. And I think there's a lot of value in that, of like always seeking. And what am I seeking? Am I seeking sedation? Mm-hmm. Am I seeking entertainment? Or am I seeking knowledge? Am I seeking connection? Am I seeking intimacy? Right? And so am I always seeking, and what am I seeking? And I think that's probably the biggest thing I'm taking away from this, for like, I would say for the listeners too, to like think about that. Are you seeking? And you're just like, no, I don't. I'm just kind of zombieing through life. Okay, well maybe what gets you excited? What could you look into that could move you forward in life, and audit what you're spending, if you're always watching negative movies and negative things and Judge Judy and Jerry Springer or whatever, something like, you may have more fear and anxiety in your day, right? And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is like, am I always seeking? Because I found where I fall off of reading books, or I fall off of like just not doing what I know puts me in the best path. And I'm like, man, why am I feeling this way? Oh, I'm not seeking the things that feed me anymore. I'm seeking things that sedate me.
Right.
And that's not helpful, right? Yeah. And so like auditing that regularly is, I think, super.
So like conscious mental auditing. And well, that's a discipline. To be able to master emotions, but like, well, I'm thinking like, in the beginning it's tough, man, to audit those thoughts. Almost like a bouncer.
Well, and you need, and that's where I think it's easier when you have companionship. And that's why like part of this like, is guys, like, hey dude, listen, I've been slacking on whatever. Like I could be like, yeah, I haven't been reading daily like I want to, and I haven't been going to the gym regularly as I want to. I want you to help hold me accountable. What can I hold you accountable for, right? And two men, imagine to be able to do that and hold each other accountable in love, right? Not in just like this macho stupidness, but like in like I believe in you. I want to see you win. I know that you're winning when you do this. Right. You know you're winning when you do this. You've committed to this, and I'm going to hold you accountable for it. And so, like, imagine if us as guys did that with each other. Like, wow, families that stay together, and like businesses that don't fold up, and like all these kind of things that come together, health and all these. Like, hey, colonoscopy time. Like there's just this, my buddy Eric, we were both like, we're gonna go do a full heart workup. Like that's our accountability thing for each other this year. Of like we're both stress test, echocardiogram. Like let's go. When are we going? When we go? July? You want to go? Let's pick a date. We'll double date to do. It's just. And so like as guys, we do that with each other. If we do, instead of like let's go watch the game. Well, how about let's make sure we do a colonoscopy. Yeah, that is fun. But like. It's way better than like, oh, what happened to your buddy? Colon cancer. Oh,
yeah, shit like that.
Imagine if you had that bond, or imagine if, or like, a divorce or affair. Like, hey, how are you guys doing? And it's like you're a little texty over here while we're hanging out. What's going? Oh, you talking to the side chick at the office? Like, burn that like down. Yeah. Stop. Right. So wherever we can do that with each other, it's just important, and then we can all be where we want to be. I think in life, or at least on track better.
So, I mean, but it's being open to, having those relationships and being able to do, like, you do that and be okay with it. And it is finding a like-minded group of people, because like you could see how one person in the group wants to become the leader, and it's like, I've seen some things go sideways. So it's actually showing up, like, when I read like Napoleon Hill, and they would have their mastermind, they literally would go in and they would almost ask for forgiveness. Like they weren't able to come into the mastermind if they were holding any unforgiveness or malice in any area of their life or any person in the room. They're like, okay guys, before we get started, like empty your shit out, because he knew that if you don't come in with an open, pure heart to serve one another, this fourth, if it was three people, this fourth mind, Christ mind, whatever, it comes in, and then all of a sudden they have all these ideas. Because it was Carnegie, Firestone, and Ford, all right? I mean, I'll do the tires, I'll do the steel, and these guys loved each other. Yeah. They loved each other. They came and they went there, but they had any malice. Because you're like, even like, hey, if you're mad at your wife, dude, we're not going to do this. Or like, let's do this, but we can't first, do our thing. Like, you have to be like this clean vessel.
No, that's great.
And just think, back in the 20s, man, like these guys knew stuff that were like universal principles.
Because they were only focused on what's important.
Right.
And what's important can be home life, right? What's important is your health. What's important is, could be like, hey man, lately my stool's been gray, and that's got me kind of like, I'm 80% here because I'm like, what could be going on, right? And so they didn't have Google or WebMD, but like those are things as guys to be like, it's gonna sound a little weird, dude, but like my stool's been kind of gray for a few. Oh, well, let's look it up. It could be this. Why don't you go get it checked out? We give you 2 weeks. I'm checking back with you in 2 weeks. I want to know. Then we have that accountability. Maybe I don't want to bring it to my wife because I want her stressed out. I want her worried. I don't want her nagging me. So it's like how do we have that, right? And so that's why I think this is part of this thing is this two men in a talk is is helping other men find those relations. You can find it. Like you and I, like we can go. I can meet 90% of dudes. I'm like not interested. And then it's like, oh, you know what, this dude's pretty cool. And you kind of do a little dance, right? See where they're at. See how they're vulnerable and what they're focused on, and if they're like a good kind of brother, and then you build those relationships, right? And I'm blessed to have a handful of them, but I'm also not interested in just regular, like surface.
Because you got to protect your space and that energy too.
For sure.
You don't want to be with a vampire.
Well, and you can get sucked down that track because it's easy from a sedation standpoint to just sit around and talk about
bullshit,
women and sport. Like it just like.
No, we were talking to like Adam and I. We ran into each other at the gym a couple weeks ago, and go right into talking like this. It's not like the game, Sunday, what did you do? No, like, or Monique's like, so what you guys talk about? I'm like, I'll bet business. Really? Yeah. Like we go right into like mindset, business, growth. What do you do? Like, there's no game. There's no what you had for brunch.
Yeah.
It was just like
no surfacey stuff.
No, and it's a Sunday, and it's like
I can save that for the people on my Zoom.
Yeah, it's
like there'll be enough of those people to have that conversation.
It's always a good time.
Yeah.
It's not about the weather. It's just because it's like real knows real, and I think every person has that person that they resonate with on determined on different points of their life. Mm-hmm. You're someone, you're like out of people I know, you're that upper part. You're that. This is high level thinking, and there's some people that I knew at different levels of my life that as your resonance goes up, they resonate out.
Yeah.
Like hey, and then there's not right or wrong. It's like, hey,
I don't not love them, but I just my time and my ability to connect with them. It's just like you don't do it anymore.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not really into doing that or hanging out at this.
Like, hey, let's just go get together and get dinner. And I'm like, hey, what are we gonna do? What? Yeah. You just want to spend like 2 hours? You want 2 hours of my time? My time? 2 hours of it just to sit talk about nothing? Like not somebody I have a connection with. I'm like, no, my family gets that, or my business gets that, or like, I'm not interested in that, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's just certain things, but I can tell that how they value their time based on how I value my time, and I can't give it to them because they're gonna squander it, right? And so hopefully. Your time was you feel was valued spending it with us. Right. Segue into that. We're glad you listened. If you listened all the way through, we're going to continue. We're going to have more. Just going to be two men in a talk, and so we're going to have conversations about this. We'll talk about health, wellness. We'll talk about relationships. We'll talk about business and money. We'll talk about just personal development, growth, and spirituality, and foundation, and best practice. All the things that we've battled with.
Sex, crazy stories.
All that stuff.
All that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like part of that is being like, because Adam is he is very God-centered, but like he's not going to throw a Bible at me. It's like you're not that guy. Like you come from what I think Christ was like. Just like, hey, listen, I'm going to hold you accountable for truth, but you're not judging me.
Well, 38 years of being a heathen before I came to know the Lord, so I also understand that stuff.
And Adam's got great backstories.
lots of I can relate. Yeah. I'm like, that's where someone's like, let me tell you. I'm like, bro, I got that 10x.
Yeah. So this is all good stuff. So, and anything you guys want to, of course, with your comments below, any questions or any question that's running through your mind that you feel like you're getting stuck with, you put there, and we'll just give you a take from our experience. And if you could take one aspect of it, and if you could shift your perception for improvement, even by the slightest bit, it's a win. And we'd be more than happy to help.
Agreed. Yeah. So thank you for hanging out. We had a great time. Hope you did too. We want to encourage you to, as we do more and more of this, for you to go create this environment for yourself and with other men. And that little ripple effect can change the world for a better place, because things are shaky right now.
You're right.
Take care.
Later.